Come and sit down with me a minute. The kettle is on. I'm 78 years old, and I'm going to tell you something that will not sound like good news, even though it is the kindest thing anyone ever failed to tell me. Everything you believe about having time, about someday, about getting to the good part of your life a little later, is wrong. And the people who ought to warn you, your mother, your teachers, the whole polite world, most of them never will, because most of them never worked it out either. I did. I worked it out far too late, sitting alone at this table. Let me save you the years it cost me. My name is Rose. I am not a doctor, and I was never a professor. I never had a career or a title to my name. I was a wife and a mother and a grandmother, the woman at the stove, the one who set this table 3 times a day for 50 years for everybody in the world, and somehow forgot to ever sit down at it herself. So I am not going to hand you clever advice. I am only going to tell you what I have learned in this quiet house, because I am running out of the one thing I once believed I had endless buckets of, and so are you, though you cannot feel it leaving. 11 years ago, I lost my husband Walter, all at once, on an ordinary morning with no warning in it at all. One day he was at this table, and the next he simply was not. And that was the morning I understood, far too late, that all of our some days had quietly run out while my back was turned. I will not give you the details of it. I will tell you what it did to me instead. For weeks after, I could not sleep, and I would sit right here in the dark with a cup of tea going cold in my hands, and the same terrible thought kept circling back to me. I had not really been living. I had been keeping the house, keeping the schedule, keeping everything tidy and ready for some better day I was certain was on its way. And the better day had been here the whole time, sitting across this table from me, in the shape of a man I kept promising myself I would slow down and enjoy later. Let me tell you the biggest lie you are telling yourself this very minute, because I told it to myself for 50 years in those exact words. I have time. I will get to it later. When the children are grown, when the money is not so tight, when the house is finally finished, then I will sit down and live the way I truly mean to. I see young women run clean off their feet the way I was, and young men too, and they are all saying the same thing. When things settle down, when this hard stretch is behind us, when we retire, as though life were a fine room you are only allowed into once you have earned the key. I am going to save you 50 years of regret with one plain sentence. That settled down day never comes. It never once came for me. There is always one more thing that needs doing, one more reason it is not quite the right time, one more mess to put right before you are allowed to rest. The work of a home is never finished, not for a single hour of a single day. And if you wait to start living until it is, you will wait your whole life through. I know, because I did exactly that. I gave this house everything I had. You could have eaten your supper off my floors. And I cannot get back Even one Sunday afternoon I spent on my knees scrubbing them, while Daniel and Ruth and little Joseph played in the next room without me. Here is a thing that nobody told me when I was young, and I do wish to heaven that somebody had. A spotless house is a poor thing to hand your one life to. And I say that as a woman who was very, very good at it. My counters shone. There was never a streak on my windows. The neighbors would come in and say, "Rose, however do you keep it so perfect?" And I would feel that small, warm flush of pride. The very same pride, I expect, that a man feels about a raise at work. And it meant nothing. It means even less now. The house stood full and clean, and the actual life inside it went on without me, while I stood polishing the frame around it. I had a friend named Ruby who lived 2 streets over for the better part of 30 years. Ruby had a sister down south she had not laid eyes on in a long, long time, and every single year she would tell me, "This is the year, Rose, this is the year I drive down and see her, the moment things let up a little." There was the garden, there were the grandbabies, there was a knee that wanted seeing to. There was always a reason, and the reason was always exactly the size of the whole trip. Ruby had a stroke the spring she turned 73, and she lived, bless her, but she was never quite herself again, and she never did make that drive. I sat with her near the end, and she did not talk to me about her clean kitchen either. She held on to my hand and she said, "I always thought there would be more time, Rose. I always thought there would be more time." There is not. That is the whole of it, the entire lesson, and it cost a good woman her sister. There is not more time. I do not lie awake grieving the things I did wrong. Those fade. They truly do. What sits heavy on my chest in the small hours is all the things I did not do at all. Walter grew up in the hills 3 states away from here, and for 40 years that man wanted to take me back and show me the creek where he fished as a boy. We said, someday. Every spring over the seed catalog, we said it. He died never once having shown me, and I have to carry that. The afternoons I shooed my own children out of my clean kitchen instead of sitting down on the floor in the middle of the mess with them. The friends I let go quiet because I was always so busy. The soft yellow armchair I wanted for 11 years and would not buy myself because it was too dear, while I bought cleaning things without a second thought. Small, you will say. They are not small. They are the whole of a life, and I traded a great many of them for a tidy house and a someday that never once arrived. I have to say a hard thing now about one of my own. My son Joseph took a rocky road in his life, the kind that breaks a mother's heart slow. And for years I kept telling myself that I would find the right quiet moment to truly reach him, when things were calmer between us, when the dust had settled. I am 78, and I am still waiting on that calm. It is not coming. Do not wait for things to be calm to love somebody all the way. The calm you are waiting for is just one more someday wearing a sensible coat. And the people? Now that is the part I most need you to hear. You believe, the way I surely believed, that the people you love come with endless time stitched right into them. Your mother, your father, if you are lucky enough to still have him. The husband across the table, reading his paper and humming a little off the tune in that way that drives you half mad. You think you will get to them properly later, once this busy season finally passes. You will not always get a later. One perfectly ordinary morning, the later runs out, and there is just a quiet chair where a whole person used to sit, and every single Sunday you were too tired to truly be with them, is suddenly the only thing your eyes can find in the room. I have grandchildren now, and I watch them, and it very near breaks my heart, because they are doing the exact thing I did, running, chasing the next thing, certain that the happiness is waiting just on the other side of it. My Tommy, who once brought me a whole fistful of dandelions with the roots and the dirt still hanging off them, is a grown man in a hurry now. And I do try to tell them. I try to hand them this, gently, over a slice of pie. And do you know, they cannot hear it. Not because they are unkind, they are good to me. Because they are standing in the very middle of the storm I am describing to them. And from the inside of it, you cannot make out the shape of the thing at all. They are certain their own lives are the one exception. I was every bit as certain of the same. Now I am going to tell you the part that is not all sorrow, because it would not be honest of me to leave you sitting in the dark of it. After I lost Walter, somewhere in the second year, I started, slow and clumsy as a girl, to do the thing I should have done at 30. I bought the yellow chair. I sit down in it of a morning now, with my tea and the sun coming in, and I do not feel guilty about it, or I have mostly learned not to. I started saying no to the things that drained me, and yes to the things that filled me back up. I had people to this table for no reason at all. With a store-bought pie, I finally stopped apologizing for. I even took up painting, badly, gloriously badly, trees that look like green clouds, and I love every minute of it. And one autumn, I drove up into Walter's Hills, my own self, and I found that creek, and I sat down by the water and I cried, and then I laughed, and it was the finest day I had had in years. These 11 years, that began in the worst grief of my whole life, have somehow held more true living in them than the 50 busy ones that came before. That is the cruel little joke of it, and the gift hidden down inside the joke. It was only when I finally understood that my time was short, that there were not endless Sundays left in the drawer, that I at last began to actually spend it. I stopped saving my own life for a better day, and I am happier now, at 78, with this small handful of years I have left, than I ever was at 35, with what felt like a whole ocean of them out ahead. Because at 35, I was sound asleep, keeping the house, waiting. And now, old as I am finally awake. So let me ask you the question I dearly wish somebody had set down in front of me while I was still young enough to answer it well. Not have you done enough, Not would people say nice things about you. Just this one. If your life were to end quietly in its sleep tonight, would you yourself and nobody else, be satisfied with the way you have been spending your days? If the honest answer is no, then I would gently ask you what on this earth you are waiting for. What is so terribly important in that busy day of yours that you are willing to lay your one and only life down flat underneath it? If I could go back and sit across this table from the young woman I used to be, with her aching feet and her shining floors, here is what I would take her 2 hands and tell her. Let the house be a little undone, my girl. Sit down on the floor in the mess with the children, because you will not remember the floor. Buy the chair. Take the trip while the both of you can still climb the hill to the creek. Call your mother on the Sundays you are tired, especially on those. Stop waiting for somebody to come along and give you permission to enjoy your own life, and start now. Not when the children are grown, not next spring, not once things have settled. Now, today, with the kettle on and the work still undone. If anything I have said landed somewhere true in you, do an old woman one small kindness. Give this video a like, not for me, I am long past needing the numbers, but so that it finds its way to some tired young soul who is scrubbing a floor tonight and saving their real life for a someday that is never going to come, the way I did. And then tell me, down below where I can read it, just one honest thing. What is the someday you keep putting off? Name it where you can see it written out plain, because a thing named in front of witnesses has a way of finally getting itself done. And if you would like to keep on sitting at this table with me a while, you know where the subscribe button is. I am 78 and I cannot get my own some days back, but yours are still in your hands, every last one of them. So do not do what I did, my dear. Do not save your life for later. The kettle is on now. The chair is pulled out now. Come and sit down in your own life while you still can.